We're gonna go ahead and do the February wrap up. February was an interesting month. I got sick twice in the shortest month of the year. Not COVID, just a cold, but got sick twice. Fun times. It affected my reading. I didn't read as much as I had anticipated. In February, of course, we know everything that's going on in the world, and I do just want to go ahead and address several books that will be coming off my TBR for the time being. These will be not on my TBR for the foreseeable future. Meaning I don't have to unhaul that Moscow book, but I'm not going to be reading it right now. The only one I'm keeping on my TBR is Gentleman in Moscow because I feel like that's appropriate for what we are seeing in the world. Let's get into the good stuff. In good and bad. In February, I was supposed to take part in 3 readathons. I did decently in one, did halfway in another, and completely failed at the third. So let's go ahead and talk about it. And actually, I also completely failed at my 12 in 2022 because I was sick and I didn't get out to the library to pick up my hold. I will be continuing Where the Forest Meets the Stars in March, as well as my March 12 in 2022, which you guys will see in the TBR video. Well, first of all, I didn't do great in my Jesus Calling because the books that I was reading were largely devotional anyway, so I wasn't really focusing on this, but I do need to get back to it in March. Yeah, it's open, or the bookmark's on February 14th, so that's how well I did with that. But I completely failed at Feb Regency, unfortunately. I started reading Longbourn because I really, really wanted to read that, and got about 100 pages in and was totally bored with it. I don't know anything that, like, did anything happen? Not really. Like, a random guy comes to a state. That's it. And one girl doesn't like him for some reason. That's all I know. Like, literally nothing happened, and it was really boring, unfortunately. It is 400 pages on my ebook, so maybe I missed out on the best 300 pages. I don't know, but I DNF'd it because I had other things that I needed to read and wanted to read. I didn't get to Northanger Abbey or Georgiana Darcy's Diary, but they are books that I own on my iPad, so I can read those whenever in the future. So then the readathon that I did halfway decent in was Brontelong, however you would say it. February book for that is Jane Eyre, and it's a reread for me, and I love Jane Eyre, but whenever it came to Polarthon, I stopped reading Jane Eyre about halfway through, then got sick after Polarthon, and never picked it back up, so I'm continuing my reread of Jane Eyre into March, along with the Brontelong March pick, which I'll talk about in the TBR video as well. The readathon that I did pretty decently with would be Polarthon. Now, I did not get to, you can tell I haven't read, my Polar Fantasy that I was so excited for, so that's going to be carried on, but I did read 4 books. I first of all read Stork by Wendy Del Sol, and this was not a book I was intending to read whatsoever, but I loved it. It was so good. It was quick moving. It was interesting. The intrigue was there the whole time. I don't remember ever being bored with it at all. Literally from the first paragraph, I was engaged with it, and I love a good book like that. I did read the sequel, Frost, right here, and I did not love it. It was just such a different, like, tone to the writing style. It's the same author, but it just was, like, it was trying too hard. To me, it it sounded like how I wrote in middle school, and it just was really not what I enjoyed about Stork, the first book. So I gave that one 3 stars, gave Stork 5 stars. Stork is basically, this girl has superpower, for lack of better words, where she is entrusted with the responsibility of connecting souls to parents and deciding basically who gets pregnant and who doesn't. And it sounds weird from that description, but it's so fun because Stork kind of goes through the process of her, like, her exploring her powers and getting to know the people that also have these powers, and it's just so fun. I loved it. It was so good. Yes, so underrated. I never heard anyone talk about it, but oh my gosh, I loved it. I read something else. I read Hunted right here. Finally read that. I did like it. It wasn't 5 stars. It wasn't 3 stars. It was 4 stars. Why did I say it like that? I don't know. It was 4 stars. I liked it. I enjoyed it. It wasn't my favorite. It wasn't my least favorite. Glad I read it. Love Beauty and the Beast, so I appreciated the retelling. I also read Northchild, which I absolutely love this cover, and it's the only reason I'm keeping this book, because I did not love Northchild, and I feel horrible because so many people, especially on Booktube, love this book, and I liked it, but I wasn't like in love with it. I wanted to know what happened, like I cared enough, but I wasn't like dying to pick this up every time I put it down. So, decent, but not my favorite. 3-ish stars, what did I give it? Gave it 3.75 stars. That's everything for the readathons I participated in. Update on my TBR. I was supposed to finish reading Acts of the Apostles, did not get to it, but I don't have that much left to go, so I should finish that pretty soon. I was also continuing Drawing Near unofficially as a devotional, didn't continue in that, and these two, No God But One, was supposed to be my Patreon pick. I didn't even pick this up this month. I'm sorry. Good thing I haven't really like promoted my Patreon, and so nobody was like depending on me to do that, but I am disappointed that I didn't get to focus on that, but maybe I'll just carry it over for March. That may be the way to go, because I'm not choosing any new TBR picks in March. For you, I'm doing something different in March to kind of catch up, and then TBR game will be back in April. But anyway, I also did not pick up the piano tuner at all. I was wanting to. It's not that I didn't want to. I just was reading other things. So hopefully I'll get to that in March as well. But TBR was a fail, thus there will be no TBR game, just because everything that I read was not on my TBR. To make sure that I read that stuff before I play my game again. What I did focus on, I wouldn't necessarily call it too much focus because I did this in the last 3 days of the month, but I did finish both Live, Love, Lead and The Meaning of Marriage. Now, I absolutely loved Live, Love, Lead because I love Hillsong, and so many of like the most influential times in my life I can like connect a Hillsong song or message or anything to it. Just God has really used their ministry to kind of, I don't know, bring me closer to him, but also like direct my life in a way. It's hard to explain, but I love Hillsong, and so reading this was so encouraging. I felt like it definitely brought me closer to God, which I really wasn't expecting from this book. I was expecting it to be more like leadership focused, hence the word lead, which it was, and I appreciated that for that, but it also just like re-emphasized the whole point of everything that we do in ministry is Jesus, and I loved that because I feel like a lot of people don't give Hillsong credit for being focused on God. I think that people look at the size of the ministry or like what people are wearing or what people are doing or whatever. But this book really brings it back to what everything that we do as Christians is all about, and that is Jesus. And I loved it. And the added Hillsong lyrics and backstory just made it even better. So totally cried during this, but I loved it. I enjoyed The Meaning of Marriage. I appreciate it for what it is. I gave it 4.5 stars. I absolutely loved Kathy's input in this book. Like the parts where she like specifically said, I'm writing this. I don't know what else she wrote in here, but I like the parts that she actually said she was writing were my favorite, as well as the part on singleness and view of marriage when you're single. Because I feel like a lot of the view of marriage when you're single is just, oh, I have to be better, or my life is incomplete until I get married, or whatever. And it's just really annoying. And I feel like a lot of the time, I don't know, I have a lot of thoughts on this. I should probably have like vlogged this better. But I really enjoyed the talk on singleness and their discussions about platitudes and things that people say that are just basically inaccurate about the biblical view of marriage. I also found it super interesting that Christianity was the first religion, recorded religion, that made it okay to be single, and yet so many Christians these days only focus on marriage, and women only have a purpose if you're married or whatever, when Christianity is the first religion that sets people free from that way of thinking. Like, that was mind-blowing to me. Loved that. I also love, in the end, Kathy, in the appendix, finally, there is one paragraph that talks about abuse in marriage relationships. And that was a huge problem that I had with this book. Of course, this book is talking about what marriage should look like. However, it fails to address what marriage does look like in our world today. And I think that a Christian book on marriage failing to talk about the reality of abuse is at best negligent. So I appreciated that she put one paragraph in there, but it definitely needed to go further than that, because it's a huge issue when we have, 80% of women in my area experiencing domestic violence. 80% of them come from Christian or religious households or churches. And that is simply unacceptable. The church needs to be talking about the basic fact that abuse is wrong, of course, needed to go more in depth with that. I appreciated that in the appendix, Kathy finally did that. So, that's my thoughts on this book. This was a really long time, actually both of these, really long time TBR picks. This one not as long as this one. When did this come out? 2011. Yeah, so I've been meaning to read this for a while. Glad I did. I can appreciate why people love it so much, but I think it also goes to show a lot of people either are blatantly ignoring the realities of abuse in relationships, or just have absolutely no idea and are completely oblivious, neither of which is acceptable. So that's why I'm sharing my thoughts on that. That being said, I think that was everything. Was that everything? I think I said this already, but Where the Forest Meets the Stars will be carried over for March. Okay, so these books had to be read by March 1st or else they'd be unhauled. These are safe. This one is not safe unless I finish it today. So I stayed up way too late last night starting this book, and I really enjoy it. I'm up to page 45, and it's a super quick read. Like, I read 45 pages when I was basically asleep. I was really enjoying it, so hopefully I'll get to finish the 180 pages left in this today. If not, into the unhaul pile it goes. But yeah, nothing to unhaul this month unless I don't finish this. And that is everything for February. I hope you guys enjoyed this and are looking forward to my March TBR video. Like I said, it will not be a game video, unfortunately, but it will be a lot. I have a lot of plans. You may be able to see some of the plans, but I have a lot to read in March, so stay tuned for that. And I will talk to you guys next time. If you are still here, please comment below and let me know your favorite book that you read in February and your least favorite book you read in February. I'd love to hear both. And with that, I'll talk to you guys next time.